Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this AETC Market Insight webinar on India. So this is going to be 45 minutes to an hour. There's an awful lot to talk about, so we may end up missing some, we may not dive in, but put your questions in the chat if you have any specific questions, and then we'll try and address them as we go along. So I'll introduce the various panelists in a moment, but I just want to pass the baton, so to speak, over to Alexia, who is just going to make a brief introduction and welcome everybody on behalf of the AETC. Alexia, over to you.
Good to see you, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon. Yes,
good afternoon.
From my side, just a little bit of housekeeping. If I have not met you yet, my name is Alexia. I work at Arctic Norway Tourist Board, and I'm one of the project managers for Arctic Europe Tourism Cluster. And as Andy mentioned, on behalf of the AETC team, I would like to give a warm welcome to all of you from near and maybe not so near in this case. To today's session that is in collaboration with Nordic Tourism Collective, and we have Andy Fairburn together with us here. This is the first of a 4-session series that will be running throughout May and the beginning of June. And just for your convenience, I will be dropping the dates in the chat, but we also have them on the Basecamp for ATC participants. Also, as you know, with all of our events, the webinar will be recorded and shared afterwards on our YouTube channel. And there you will also be able to find the previous sessions on European markets. So if you haven't had the chance to watch them yet, you're very welcome to take a look at those. This webinar series is, of course, possible with the support of Interreg Aurora. And once again, we are very happy to be collaborating with Nordic Tourism Collective. But yes, as Andy said, there is a lot to cover. We could be talking maybe for an entire week. So I will not steal more time from the session and leave the digital floor to you, Andy, and to our wonderful panel.
Thank you, Alexia. Yeah, so let's get started. We're talking about India today. A huge market, massive potential. Very complicated market, and I think it's a market which everyone knows a little bit about, but probably not enough to form any sort of real decisions about what they should be doing there. So what we try to do is bring some experts together today to try and sort of unpick India a little bit in terms of the market. So in no particular order, and really going around my screen as I see it, we have, and I'm going to put my glasses on to read their actual sort of qualifications out. We have Tejbir Anand, gentleman, give us a wave, Tejbir. He is Joint MD of Holiday Moods Adventures, which is DMC and GSA in India for the Nordic region. And he's past president of the Adventure Tour Operation Association in India. So he's well versed in the Nordics and particularly with the adventure side of things as well. Next is Papori Bharti. I hope I pronounced that correct, Papori. She is now currently Indian representative Visit Oulu, but has also been past the India country manager for Finland tourism. So her knowledge on Finland particularly is particularly significant and important here. Bottom left on my screen, we have Sara Juneja. Is that correct?
You have to pronounce the J.
Well, whatever. Yes. I'll just call you Sara. How's that for now? So Sara was in the past was the India country manager for Finland tourism, but is now her own representative for Sara Representations, which is a representation company for the Nordic region, specifically based in India. And then finally, but not least, is PB, whose real name is Paramjit Bawa, but he prefers to be known as PB, which is much easier to say. And he used to be the 10 years at VisitBritain for representing the India and the Middle East, and also for Destination New South Wales in Australia. So his experience and his knowledge of the industry is particularly particularly valuable to us today. So PB is going to kick things off with, I think you've prepared a short introduction to the Indian market in general. Before we start, I just want to say one thing, which is there's a huge elephant in the room, and that elephant is the Middle East. So we're going to park the Middle East for now, because I don't want to get bogged down on current issues, problems, challenges, all the rest of it. I think that's unhelpful. I think it's not meaning it's not an issue and it's not serious, but I think what we need to focus on is the medium and longer term about the potential of India and really India as a source market destination. But if anyone, we will talk about it at some point, but I don't want to get bogged down in all of that. So if everyone's happy with that, PB, I'm going to hand over to you. So I'm going to share my screen and show everybody your beautiful presentation. If you want to walk us through it, PB, maybe just introduce, before we start, if you just introduce yourself and say a couple of words, PB. I've gave you a bit of an introduction, but maybe you want to just say a little bit more.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. First of all, thank you to NTC and Aurora for giving us this opportunity to showcase India, our wonderful market, to all of you. And I want to thank you all for taking the time to participate and join us. I'm also very grateful to our panelists who have taken the time to join us today. I don't think we can get more eminent experts on the region in India than the three of us, the three of you who are here today. So thank you. My name is Paramjit. As Andy said, everyone calls me by my initials because it's much simpler and quicker. I have been heading various tourism boards in the past, in different roles. I now run my own consultancy business for tourism, and we are really privileged to be working with the Nordic Tourism Collective in India and representing them. We also represent the European Tour Operators Association, ADTOI. So we are really invested in the European market. I've been asked to spend about 10 minutes talking about India. Where do I start in 10 minutes with a market like this? Let me start by saying that the first thing you should know about this market is that it's diverse. It's a huge market, but it's not the same market when you travel from one part to another. Lots of things change as you go from north to south, east to west. There are different levels of income. Climate changes, cuisine changes, the way people spend their money, the way they prioritize their spending, what they like to do when they travel. It's a very diverse market, and one needs to be flexible in one's approach to be successful here. The market is comprised of all kinds of operators. So you have your big wholesale tour operators who are, some of them are online, a lot of them are offline, some of them are a hybrid. Then you have the smaller retailers who are not the big guys, but they still generate substantial business. And these ones are based in various cities around India, and I'll come to that in a little bit. And then you also have the DMCs from various countries who are running their offices in India and helping agents to organize their clients' facilities and infrastructure on the ground when they arrive. You have airlines, you have hotels, so there's a whole mix of operators and members. The important thing to remember is there are also the smaller retail operators operating out of the tier 2 cities, what we call the secondary and tertiary markets. So India is not just about Delhi, Mumbai, and Bangalore. There are hundreds of smaller cities, and there are good agents and with good clients in those cities. So this is one segment that one should not and cannot ignore in this market. The market is still at a fairly early stage of development, but we are maturing all the time. And as the market matures, you'll see, we are observing a shift towards more experiential travel. We're seeing a shift towards more digital bookings and people checking out what they want to do, checking out destinations online. And I'm going to come to this element about trust and value a little later, which is again very, very important and is becoming more important as our market matures and develops. People are booking through traditional methods. They're going to their tour operator or their travel agent and sitting across the table and booking their travel. But people are booking increasingly digitally online through travel portals and through OTAs. It's a real mix, this market. Next slide, please, Andy.
Sorry.
So remember the three U's of this market. The first U is unorganized. The second U is that it's unstructured. And the third U is that it's unregulated. We have a lot of associations who claim to be representatives of the market, but really none of them are the actual representatives, and everyone is competing against each other. However, this situation should not deter you or make you nervous. If you approach the market in a systematic way and have the right strategies, you don't have to be worried about these three things. And that is how NTC and people like ourselves and the panelists who are on this discussion today can help. It's a very competitive and largely price-driven market, but as I said, the market's maturing, and as it matures, we are seeing more focus on people looking for quality and service and expecting the right kind of value for the money that they're spending. And I'm going to come to that point again in a few minutes as well. Roughly 60 to 70% of the bookings are online. But what we're seeing is in the past, online bookings were primarily for people looking to book their hotels and book their flights. But now we're seeing the online operators in this market have started offering packages, products, the ability to mix and match different things and activities that you can do. All of that can now be done online. So online travel booking is becoming more prevalent, but there is still a very important role for the offline and conventional brick and mortar tour operators, because for India and for Indians, it's very, very important that they have assurance. They sit in front of somebody with, with a face to the name who can give them the confidence that they're going to the right place and they've got the right value and they're getting the right price, and everything can be organized without a hitch. So this becomes very important, especially when it's multi-point travel, or if there's a group traveling like a family with either older parents or with younger kids, and there really is not much scope for anything to go wrong. They want everything to be absolutely perfect without a hitch. And so this human touch is also still very important. So the tour operators and the travel agents, and especially in the smaller cities of India, they've got good business, but they don't necessarily have online presence, but they're still very important players. Next slide, please. So the other thing to remember about this market, it's not as big as you might think. So we have about 1.4 billion people, but we only have around 128 million passport holders. And not all those passport holders are going long haul. There were 32 million of them who traveled overseas in 2025. So a lot of them have got passports but have not traveled overseas. Out of that 32 million, only about 6.5 to 7 million went to Europe in 2025. And remember that most of these who went to Europe would have traveled to the popular destinations. So the popular destinations right now for Europe are France, Western Europe, the UK, Spain, Italy, those kind of destinations. The Nordic market is now beginning to make its presence felt because of the hard work that's being done by the people who are on the panel here today. And now the NTC and ADTOI are looking, focusing more on the India market. So it's beginning to make its presence. So that is actually an opportunity. So when you're starting from a low base, the only way to move is up. You're gonna develop the market. The potential is there to grow it, and it's still a pretty big market. 6.5 to 7 million people is still a fairly big market. But remember, it's not a one-size-fits-all market. I told you this earlier. Everything changes as you move from one place to another. There are different layers. People are taking different decisions about what they want to spend on, what they want to travel. Don't try to be everything to everyone. Pick your target segments. There is no harm in you telling a tour operator in India that, hey, this is something I can't do, and this is something that I'm really good at. So I want to focus on that with you. That's the right strategy. If you try and do everything for everyone, you're going to come up short, and then you will miss a trick somewhere or the other. Next slide, please. As I said, the market is maturing. We're seeing more and more trend of repeat travelers are increasing. They want to do things beyond the beaten track. They've done all the standard stuff. They've done the Eiffel Tower in Paris. They've done the Colosseum in Rome. They've done Big Ben in London. Now they want to do different things. So we're seeing a big trend as the market matures for themed travel. People want to look at wellness, or they want to go and see a football match in Sweden, or they want to experience a Coldplay concert somewhere in the Nordic or in Europe. They want to check into a wellness facility for 5 or 6 days and just get away from everything. We're seeing a lot more of this kind of stuff coming into the market. So it's becoming experience driven as well. Next slide, please. So just to summarize now, I probably don't have that much time left. Don't forget the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. If you're ignoring these, you're missing a trick. There are some really good opportunities in these cities. The market is maturing. If you're offering something which is experience driven, and most of our Nordic friends will be offering experience driven packages and tours, that's a great thing. There's a big market for it now. Gone are the days when Indians who are traveling to Europe would only be looking for price. No. Now, if they perceive value for what they're paying, they will pay that money. And they will stay in the best hotels. They will go to the best restaurants. They will shop. Indians are big shoppers. We love to shop. They will look at value for money. So that shift from value to value for money is now well and truly entrenched in this market. Don't make the mistake of thinking that Indians are only looking for cheap experiences. They're not. And let's talk about this trust factor a little bit. If you develop a trust factor or a relationship with key decision makers in this market, they will give you at least the first choice of refusal, if not actually give you the business. It will become very difficult for them to ignore you when they have business in your part of the world, if they have a relationship with you. And when I say relationship, I don't just mean knowing them. I mean wishing them on their birthday or their anniversary. When they come to your market, take them out for dinner. When you go to their market, you come to India, go out for dinner with them. Stay in touch with them all the time. Build that level of relationship. And that takes time. Building relationships like that takes time. And that's why I say this market demands a little bit of perseverance, a little bit of patience. But once you get to that level, you get that confidence and trust and relationships in place. This is a huge market. So with that, I'll pass on back to Andy. Thank you.
Thank you, PB. That's a nice introduction. There's quite a lot to pick out there, but I'm going to start with Tejbir, because you're a sort of operator, and I need to ask you a couple of questions. So, when the Indian went to we're looking at the Nordic market specifically. So, would the Indian traveler be looking at a multi-country itinerary for starters? Would they be interested in just going to Finland, for example, or would they be interested in doing an itinerary, or is that too general a question? It's sort of it's all over the place and it's all a mix of everything.
I think fairly that's a great question, and honestly, since the region is large, like India is a huge country and incredible complexities, so is the Nordic region also. So my answer would be that the initial, demand as of now in the market is for experiencing the Northern Lights. So that's the first driver, which I would say with the amount of inquiries which come to our office. Now, a second layer customer who is maybe a traveler who's been to one of the countries and seen the Northern Lights, experienced them. Now he or she wants to do more. So that is when they start choosing the countries. But having said that, definitely, I think Sara and Papori have done really good work in promoting Finland. So Finland really comes on the top when people start asking about Northern Lights. And then obviously Finland, does come, a little high on their list. But having said that, Norway has done well. Iceland is one of the most popular destinations. And then I would say comes in, Sweden, and then, Faroe and Greenland just started, So it's the Northern Lights, which is the driver. And second are the activities, which are basically the winter-based activities. So these two combinations actually are driving the demand as of now.
And a supplementary question for you while we're on it. what I read somewhere that I can't remember that the itinerary length of Indian travelers tends to be slightly longer. Is that correct or not? Again, is that too much of a generalization?
Not at all. That's a very valid question. And it's very simple to understand that India is a long haul destination, especially if you fly from Delhi. It's still, let's say, 7.5 to 9 hours we're trying to access. Or if we go down south, add on another 2.5 to 3 hours. So we are talking about somewhere between going up to 10, 11 hours. So that's not a very small, time to travel. Now, anyone coming that far, it's a lot of money. They do not wish to come for a small time. We rarely sell, programs and itineraries which are like 4 or 5 days. It's usually starting from 7 days and going all the way up to even 3 weeks. So that's what the Indian traveler is asking at the moment. And since we work only with the travel agents, we don't work with the consumers directly. So it's kind of a great, information and statistics that we keep on building, that we understand what the end traveler is asking, and we also understand what a retail agent is also trying to, get from us for the end travelers.
Fantastic. Well, thank you.
Andy, could I just pop in here a little bit? I just want to come back to the point you made about, whether they're going to different countries. So one thing that really helps is that several of the countries in the Nordic region and the Baltic region are Schengen members. So one visa allows visitors from India to travel to 2 or 3 countries. And often, as Tejbir said, this is a long haul destination. They're spending good money to go there. They will want to experience, possibly 2 or 3 different cities in 2 or 3 different countries. But the fact that there's a Schengen visa which allows them to do that without having to apply for separate visas, that helps as well. So that's another factor in all of this.
I completely agree. And that's where my 2 weeks and 3 weeks came in. So you're absolutely spot on saying that when you have just a week, so more or less it's just one country, maybe a 2, like, they might like to do Sweden and, Finland together. But usually we are seeing a great demand of a very long itineraries starting from 2 weeks, even going to 3 weeks.
Fantastic. Now I was actually going to talk about visas later, but I'm glad you brought it up, because I think, but we can go back to that. So let's pick visas up later. Papori, maybe I can ask you, so so obviously at the moment you're representing Visit Oulu. So the tour operators and the travel agents that you're dealing with, how do they actually make their bookings? Do they make their bookings directly with the DMC, or do they go to suppliers? How does it work in practical terms?
See, there are several verticals. Either they go through DMC or they do directly, because some of the players are big ones, so they have already been selling Finland and the Nordic countries. So for them, it's really not a big thing. So they could choose multiple channels, whatever suits. But definitely, largely through DMCs, I have noticed, maybe because to put the payment in one office is convenient. All the payment. So that is, yeah. So that's, a convenience kind of a thing, instead of paying in several different like accommodations and activities and this and that. So they would prefer to park their money at one place. And yes, they would choose wherever they get a good deal, wherever they get a good response, who get back with them with multiple choices and more options and offers. So they're pretty much like flexible. There are no such one way of doing it when it comes to Oulu also, because Oulu is also a big part of Finland now, with regular flights and things like that. So I would say they would choose. It's just that we have to create more awareness about these areas.
So I think that's interesting. I think that it's interesting but not helpful, because if I'm a supplier in Finland or in Wales, or what's my route to market then? Are you saying that it could be either and or both? I mean, they could work with the DMC or they could work direct. It's sort of
right.
And it depends very much upon the actual sort of the product, or who you're dealing with or who you're talking to.
Yeah, I mean, see, at the moment, it may seem a little confusing to you because, like I said, it's like my Tejbir and PB has already mentioned, it is not really a very organized thing. It's a bit chaotic, but there is a method in this chaotic, thing. So we agents, like I'm also an agent, so we know exactly how and where to go to. So there is like no one procedure for all this. We could be working with Tejbir, we could be working with maybe PB, we could be asking for Sara's, intervention also. So it could be whatever works for us, whatever works for the travel agent, whatever works for the client. So it's how it is. So you have to keep all your channels open.
Okay.
Like I said.
Fine. I keep all my channels.
It's just a start. Of course, PB is there to work out all this logistics and all. So it works. It works.
I think, Andy, when you're coming into the market for the first time, you need to keep your options open.
Okay.
And see what works and what doesn't. And as you are getting more and more entrenched in the market and you're building those relationships and you're getting the business, then it's an evolution process. Automatically, you will be able to understand which method is working for your contacts, the people that you do business with, and which methods are working for you. So it's an evolution over time.
Okay, so Sara, I'm going to come to you now because you this is what you do at the moment. It would seem so. You're trying to help suppliers and you're trying to help organisations of the Nordics navigate their way through the Indian market. So how do you advise them? I mean, in terms of, is that something that is part of your service? Is advising people as to the best way of approaching the markets? Anyway, I'll shut up and I'll let you answer the question.
Of course, that is one of the most primary service that we provide, all of us, to be very honest. And, as PB already mentioned, the market is so chaotic. It is very important to have a person who can actually help you penetrate into the correct sales channels because there are so many sales channels available. Everybody is selling almost everything. But you need to really be aligned into what is and what positioning of the market you're trying to penetrate. Is it groups? Is it FIT? FIT also like a mid-level or a high-end FIT? And considering that there are a lot of sales channels. But from Finland point of view, I would like to add that, the Indian agent has matured a lot. They know very well the destination. As Tejbir mentioned, Finland is a lot mono travel destination now, especially for the winter travel. People don't really, they're very happy doing like first trip only Finland for, 7 to 10 nights, considering, there's a lot of regions that have been pointed out, like Rovaniemi for something and Sarisalka for something, Oulu for something. So they know that now, there's awareness about all the particular region. So, Finland really stands out in that way that the DMCs still play a very, very important role. But from groups' point of views, there are multiple sales channels now to penetrate the market.
Okay, well, okay, that's brilliant. And I think, and a question I think to everybody pretty much, which I'm sure everybody wants to know is, in terms of the sort of booking patterns, is the Indian market, and again, this is a massive generalization, but is it generally a market which tends to book late, or is it a market which tends to book in advance? Tejbir, I can see you're stroking your beard there, so you have an answer there for me.
No, absolutely, because this becomes even more interesting as we go ahead. The first factor, I think, Andy, which comes in is that Indians need visa to come to the Schengen countries.
Well, this is a dichotomy, isn't it? Because you've got a short market, but they need a visa. So how do you sort of, you need to sort of try and get a solution.
Exactly.
And match
so that's the first trigger which comes in, that to come to these countries, to our region, Nordic region, you need a visa, and the visa process does take, a month plus, sometimes even, 45 days. And you need to plan in advance, also. So I would say that it's not a last minute booking, country or a source market where somebody will say, okay, next week I'm flying there and this is my 7 days plan or 10 days plan. It doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
So it's very good for the suppliers and for the destination that it's a pre-planned destination. We are working with our retail agents for, let's say, even 9 months in advance. If it's a mice, like Sara mentioned, you need to also understand that are we looking at an FIT agent? Are we looking at an agent who works with only groups as mice? There are school operators. There are top-end luxury operators who only sell the top end. So depending about that, it ranges from even, I would say, minimum is 2 months, going up all the way up to a year also.
Okay, and that makes sense. I'm just thinking about in terms of if they're expecting prices from DMCs and they're expecting. I'm going to go to Papori for this because you're sort of representing a specific destination, but. Are the Indian? Do they have to? Are they got an expectation about receiving quotes and prices and all that? Is that sufficient? Does it work, or do you find that if the service they're receiving from the DMCs and the suppliers is that good enough for the Indian operators and the agents, or is that something you sometimes find that they're waiting for quotes to be replied?
First thing, when they decide to take a holiday somewhere in Finland or any of these Nordic countries, they would definitely like to fix the budget. They would like to. They will like to have a quotation based on their budget, whatever they have. And of course, it's not only matching the budget, but it's also like the value which comes in that quotation. So yes, this plays a very important part. And yes, there is another factor. We would definitely check from 2-3 sources about the price. So this is a price conscious market. I'm not going to say we are not. We are definitely a price conscious market, but the value for that price has to be there. It doesn't matter if it is €1 or €1,000,000, that value of that amount has to be there. So yes, the price plays a very important factor. The turnaround time also plays a very important factor. How soon we get a quotation. So that also plays a very important factor.
I mean, I guess if you're buying a Rolls Royce, if you're in the market
yes.
for Rolls Royce, you still want good value, even though it might cost £500,000. So okay, that's fair enough. And the seasons, Sara. Obviously we're talking about the Northern Lights, we're talking about the Nordics.
Yes,
it's primarily seasonal, and it's primarily, as Tejbir talked about, it's primarily driven by winter and by the Nordic Lights. There's very little demand to the Nordic region in the summer. Or again, you're going to enlighten me on that. Is it purely a sort of...
Yes. So this is one topic which I keep saying over and over again. Tejbir and I, we do have long conversations over it that we should talk about Northern Light, but we should also talk about the other factors which are, like equally good, because Northern Light is a natural phenomena. Sometimes people can be there for a week and not see, and sometimes if they're there for a day, they see it. So it's not something one can guarantee. So I would really, for myself, I don't push Northern Lights so much, because I would push the other things also, because like I said, Northern Light is just one part of it, but that definitely has been selling. In India, the travel are based on the school holidays. Our school holidays starts from mid-April from West India, from South, and continues to mid-July. So, because it goes according to the pattern of the monsoon, the rain. So the holidays are in that way. So, so based on our holidays, based on the corporate holidays, so the travel period are largely, fixed with that. So of course, now the demands for the winter holidays are very much there, not because of Northern Lights, for snowmobiles, for Santa Claus, for reindeer safaris and this and that and all. But we would also like to talk about the summer products, the autumn period, the colors, the forest, the rivers, the lakes, the sea. I would like to talk about all these also along with Northern Lights.
I mean, I think the snow is obviously quite an important factor, because you don't get an awful lot of snow in India, do you?
In India, of course, it's a huge country. So yeah, 2 days back, I was in Badrinath, where There was like so much of snow over there. It was -5. It was freezing cold. I came down to the plane. It is now, what's the temperature now? It must be mid-30s now. So we are like a huge country. So yes, some part of us, we do have a lot of snow in Kashmir and Arunachal and in the northern part. And of course, the rest of India don't have snow. That is a novelty. Definitely snow is a novelty, and activities on the snow, definitely it is.
Definitely. But it's interesting because you obviously the Arctic activities are very much sort of snow based, if you like. But I mean, as you rightly said, there are forests and there are lakes and it's a lot of the fresh air and all the rest of it. And I know that you do get that in India, particularly to get up into the hills a bit. But I mean, but a lot of the city, if you live in a city, you don't see that. So that open air and that sort of fresh air and that cleanliness and the lakes and the forests, that must be an attraction in itself. So Sara, I'm going to move to you now and ask you.
Sorry, Andy. Just very quickly before Sara, before we come to you, I just want to add in here. Remember that in India, the summer becomes really hot. Whether you're up in the north of India, in Delhi, the temperatures can go up to 42, 43 degrees. Down south as well, it's a different kind of heat. It's not dry heat, but it's very humid heat. Now, these summer months when the holidays and the school vacations take place, people are looking to escape the heat. It's not just about the destination or experiences. That's important, but also one factor is getting away from the heat. And what better place to get away from the heat than the Nordic and the Baltic regions, because it's very cool. You still need to wear a jacket during the day. You know, for the average Indian, when it comes down to 14 or 15 or 12 degrees, you want to wear a jacket and they want to get out of the heat. So there is a lot of potential to attract people into the region in the summer as well. And there's so much that the region can offer in the summer. So I think Papori is absolutely right. We need to focus on both the winter as well as the summer. And I think Sara can bear me out on this as well.
If you permit me, Paramjit, I'd like to just add on what you said. Snow is becoming a very important part of the holiday, because in India, you do have a lot of snow and the huge Himalayan range that we have, but the ease of coming and flying into the Nordic region and enjoying is fantastic. So most of our agents have their customers saying that we want to experience snow and snowfall. Now, not even that, they are going ahead and saying, I want to experience -20. I want to experience the ice hotel. So there is a great demand of places like Yukosarvi and Kemi and Shirkanes, and that's what we have been receiving a lot of demand for. So I think it's great, fantastic that the snow activities, the snow, cold, and even in summers like Europe is like reeling around 30, 35, mid-30s, and we in Nordic we still do lovely 15 degrees or something that around. So I think that's a great driver. Yeah. Sorry, Sara, we just stole your show.
No, not at all, not at all. I would just like to add that, this year, considering the geopolitical situation, the summer, though for Nordics, especially from like groups point of view, there's not been like a major disaster, but, the groups are still operating, though the numbers definitely reduced a bit. But it's also becoming a positive thing for us. There's some background noise. I don't know whose is it.
We'll mute ourselves.
Yeah, so, which is also becoming a plus point, especially from a Finland point of view. I can share that a lot of group departures are being planned for autumn this year, specifically for, Scandinavian capitals, and also combinations for only mono Finland itineraries with Lapland. So definitely autumn will be growing as a season, going forward.
But can I ask you two questions, and Sara, based on that? So the first question is group business. So
yes,
I guess, and I don't know, but I'm assuming that there's a rise in FITs, but I imagine the group business is still fairly stable and fairly solid. What does that group business look like? Because anecdotally, we read or we hear that sort of Indian group business is like an extended family, like a small. Is that still the case?
So that would be like a multi-generational family group, but there is again a group series departure business also, which is very predominant in India, and now which is also getting established very well for Finland and for the Nordic countries, where basically a company like Thomas Cook will launch a departure where people from different parts of India will buy that departure and they travel together. So that again, as a market, is becoming very, very big. And also, there are a lot of groups from India now where they want Indian food. So there are a lot of operators which are also catering to requests like that. So yes, definitely group business is on a very, very good rise. But of course, also FIT and luxury travel is growing massively towards the Nordic region.
Okay, so I'm going to ask some thorny questions now then. So basically, PB, I'm going to ask you first of all. So this notion of Indian food, is that still an important factor? Do the Indian travelers still want that? I mean, years ago, I remember it was a huge thing. I mean, is it still a huge thing? Is that still something that suppliers need to be thinking about?
Yeah, I think they do. This is a bit of a tricky one because we find that most of the travelers coming to the Nordic region still are usually, the more experienced travelers who've done the conventionally popular European destinations already, and now they're looking to do something different or something much more experiential. So they're planning to come to Finland or Norway, and a lot of these people are well traveled. They've experienced a lot of different cuisines around the world. So when you talk to them, they will say, yeah, we're really keen to experience the local cuisine, and we're not that keen on Indian food. But at the bottom of it, the bottom line is, once they've had 3 meals, which are Scandinavian or Nordic in nature, they will start craving an Indian meal. No matter how much they shout about that, they will want to have an Indian meal after 3 or 4 meals, or a continental or European meal. So it is important. And the other thing to remember is, very roughly ballpark figure, 50% of all visitors from India will be vegetarians. So not just the Indian food. I would suggest to everyone who's into the catering part of things that keep in mind about vegetarian food options. They must be available. But yes,
one more
food is
thing,
important.
it is not only vegetarian food. Some days they are vegetarian and some days they are not vegetarian. So that, suddenly, like on some religious days, they are vegetarian. And yes, PB is very much right. Someone like me, if I travel there for after 4 or 5 days, I would like to have an Indian meal. So this is very much a part of a culture. And Oulu has got 3-4 of them. So that's really not a problem for me when I go there.
So the message then to anybody watching and anybody listening, and then is that there should be some facility whereby Indian food would be available, whether that's an Indian restaurant or whatever it might be. But to bear that in mind, if you're interested in attracting Indian visitors, then you need to cater for them in that way. It may not be every day, but at least you give them the option.
Yes. And that's not really very difficult, but there are so many Indian restaurants in all these main cities and so many places. So you just need to get in touch with them. That's it.
You can put your hand up.
I wanted to add that let's, break this down, group business, into various parts. And Sara very well, said that there can be an incentive business, which can be termed as a group. There can be a school group, which has to be dealt separately. There can be a families together, which can also constitute a group. So there are various ways of understanding and interpreting what a group business is. But Indian meal, end of the day, becomes a deal breaker. So for the listeners, I would say that it's imperative that the Indian meal component has to be there. And if you just go back and relook, why hasn't the group business moved up to the Arctic region compared to all the time it revolves around the capitals? There's a reason for that, and that is the Indian food. And as Indian restaurants and can be found up in Trondheim or in Tromso or in Rovaniemi, so there is where you find the footprints of the group business also going. I just came back from Sweden, just like last week, and I was there for 3 weeks, and I also saw that there are a lot of Indian restaurants which are there in various parts of Sweden, but they're actually not trying to get the group business. So I had a great, conversation in Uppsala and Gävle and Kiruna, And that's where, we shared, that how important the Indian food is, especially if it's an incentive business, because they need it like every night.
Sure. Okay, thank you for that. Sara, I'm going to ask you another thorny question. So in terms of quality and standards and service, so I've stayed in some very fancy sort of hotels in India where there are more staff than there are guests, and people carry everything for you, and literally everything is taken care of before you. So in Scandinavia and the North, you don't get that. So is that an issue, and how aware are the Indian visitors of that situation? And is that something which the tour operators and the travel agents need to tell their visitors to temper their expectations?
Yeah, so this is where the travel agent actually plays a very, very important role, because a lot of time people are traveling to Lapland, they are paying more than 1,000 euros a night, and they expect that, they will get the world, but it's just a simple room night for them, So yeah, this is where agents play a very, very important role. And to be very honest, there are a lot of times that people come disappointed with the service level, because the ticket size, the file size is, in terms of the revenue, the amount of money they're paying is quite huge. But this is where, as I said, education plays a very, very important role. And now, of course, the DMCs, the agents, everybody is very well versed. So if, I have a client, I know that who would not want to carry luggage, everything can be organized, and everything is available. Hotels have porter services, everything available. You pay, you book, and everything can be organized. But there used to be a time when, people were not aware, they would not book these things. But over the years, the market has definitely matured, and these services are available. And the suppliers also understand, the hotels or the activities, that yes, they have to go above and beyond to cater to these markets, and they're doing it at an additional fee, which mostly people are happy to pay. But yes, initially there has been quite a lot of disappointment with the direct customer with regards to the service level, considering because their expectations were so high.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you. We've got 10 minutes left, so I'm going to move the conversation on a little bit and talk about marketing and how you get into the Indian market. So there are events. There's ADTOI Mumbai, for example. There are all sorts of different representation events which are hosted by some of the Nordic tourist boards. They tend to go to the sort of capital cities, if you like. They tend to be in Mumbai, or they tend to be in Delhi. We're talking about the predominance of the 2 and the 3 tier destination, the 2 and 3 tier cities. But do they need to organize their own trips to these places in order to be some? I'm looking at you, PB, because you're this is more your bag. What would you recommend their approach should be?
Okay, Andy. So first of all, I just want to clarify this. If anybody has this misconception that the trade events are only centered in the big cities like Delhi and Mumbai, we now have a good number of platforms who are doing trade events in the tier 2 and tier 3 markets. There is an organization called the India Hospitality Network. Tejbir and I and Papori have been closely involved with them. They pick 12 cities across India, every year, and they do these trade events, these buyer-seller meets with very high-quality agents being invited. There's another platform known as the GPS platform, which does, again, 12 cities across India every year. And these platforms are getting overseas operators and suppliers to participate. And those suppliers are finding it well worth their while, because, as I said, the tier 2 markets are generating really good numbers. So if you don't necessarily want to do an OTM and you want to focus on tier 2, it is very possible now to find platforms which will allow you to do that in the tier 2 and tier 3 markets. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that Sara mentioned earlier the importance of having somebody here in the market to look after the interests of a supplier who is sitting thousands of miles away and can't necessarily just come to India at the drop of a hat. In such cases, we often find that the supplier will work with a local representative, and that representative will then be their person at these events and talk about the product and talk about how to book and do the engagement with the operators who come. Now, some of these events, they broad base the invite. So they say, okay, we're doing the event in, let's say, Hyderabad on this date, come one, come all. And then there are some some platforms who actually just do it by invitation so that they can match the people coming with the suppliers who are participating and then make sure that the conversations are meaningful. Typically, you go to an OTM, you will meet 500 or 400 or 600 people over the course of 3 days. And then you have to rely on somebody to segmentize those because you don't know which agent is doing what and which agent is worth your time and your resource. So having a representative in the market who can do that for you again because they know the market, they know the operators, that's again becomes an important role. But then there are platforms where that doesn't happen. They see the profile of the suppliers and exhibitors and they invite. So these are by invitation platforms only, and they'll make sure that you meet much less number of agents, maybe 40 or 50, but you have meaningful conversations with almost all of them. So there are different types of shows, different types of trade events, and many of them are operating out of the tier 2 market. So it's quite easy to do this if you really want to focus it that way.
I would imagine the two and three tier markets are more receptive to suppliers visiting than perhaps they would be in Mumbai or Delhi, because I'm just making a comparison with the UK. So if you have an event in London, there's lots of events in London and people get very blasé. But if you have an event in Manchester or Birmingham, people come along because they're generally more interested and because they don't have an event every day of the week. So it's the reception you get from and I imagine it's sort of not dissimilar in these 2 and 3 tier destinations. So
also remember that in the tier 2 and tier 3 markets, there are still a lot of agents, the majority of agents who are hungry for information, hungry to learn, hungry about knowledge, and hungry to offer their clients a different kind of experience or a different kind of destination from what they've been usually offering. And so they come with a much more open mind, a much more of an appetite to work with tour operators. A lot of the agents in the big cities already have experience of destinations and they already have their infrastructures in place. Many of these guys in the tier 2 and tier 3 markets don't have that. So they're hungry. And I also want to come back to the role of tourism boards in this. Now, people like Papori, who represents Oulu, she understands this. She goes to the tier 2 cities. She participates in those events where she gets to meet agents and talk to them about her destination. But a lot of the tourism boards, Andy, from Europe, and not just from Europe, even from other parts of the world, either they're not interested or they're not aware or they don't have the budgets, but they do not go into the tier 2 markets as much as they should. They focus all their activities on Delhi and Mumbai and Bangalore. And so these agents in these tier 2 cities, they're looking for opportunities to interact with product, with destination, which they don't get as often as an agent in Delhi and Mumbai will get. So it's quite important, and it's quite a receptive market in most cases, and well worth looking at.
I think that's true, and I think that the tourist boards, maybe, I think they're probably interested. It's obviously a budget consideration because it's not cheap to take people to India. But I do think that it's easier to go along to Delhi or Mumbai, and it's more complicated. But maybe that's an investment which is going to be a better investment in the long run because you get more interaction.
Take on that, Andy.
Sorry, who said that?
I have another take on that, on marketing.
Final question. I don't know who's best positioned to answer this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So social media. So social media is something which, dominates our lives in every single facet of what we do. We get bombarded with so much social media. I guess that's important, as important in India as it is anywhere else. What Papori, you're nodding very sort of knowledgeably about what's the major platform? How does it work? I mean, in China, for example, they have 1,000 different platforms, and they have dedicated social media channels just for travel. But what's the situation in India? Give us a sort of a feel for the environment.
Social media is the big buzz now, and of course we are big followers of Bollywood stars, so it works very well for us. Also influencer, travel, food influencer.
And what channel are they using? What are they on? What's the
media? You can call it media, you can call it on the social platform, on their Instagram handle or TikTok or wherever, when they come and post pictures and talk about the places they go. That really generates a lot of interest, which eventually do change into bookings and things like that. Social media definitely plays a big role into it. The social media influencers can be of any verticals. They could be Bollywood stars, they could be food influencers, travel influencers, they could be fashion vistas, they could be anything. So that really plays a big role in it. So these days, like I myself have done several FAMs for these people, and it really pays. It pays eventually, because they come and talk in their circle, and ours is mostly by word and mouth. Our marketing, our thing, it doesn't matter how many posters you put up, but if I go and talk with someone about it, goes and experience, and he goes and talks with someone else, this works fantastic in our market.
So
social media.
What are they using? Are they using it? Is an Indian channel using, or people?
Yeah, let me step in. I'll step in here. So let me just give you a little insight, a little trivia. What do you think is the biggest market in the world for Facebook and Instagram?
Is it India by any chance?
It is India. We have the
I guess it answers your question. Yeah.
Of Instagram followers. We have the biggest population of Facebook followers of any country in the world. And this is a big platform, an opportunity to market using these platforms. The other one, which is
it at all. You cannot ignore
the
this
one
market at
which
all.
is ubiquitous in this market, which is being used by almost everyone, and this might not be the case in the Nordics, is WhatsApp. So WhatsApp, there is hardly anybody in the whole country that doesn't have WhatsApp on their smartphones. If they have a smartphone, they'll have WhatsApp on it. But it may not be that prevalent in the Nordics. I accept that. But there's the other point, is that it's still a very cost-effective way to do things. So conventional advertising or conventional marketing can be much more expensive. You want to take out an ad in a trade magazine or a consumer magazine, or you want to put something on television or the internet on a website. It's much cheaper to do it on social media. It's still much cheaper. So it is cost effective. It is far reaching. It has a great reach across the market. And any strategy for marketing in India must include social media in it. Facebook and Instagram, especially.
India doesn't have its own sort of Indian platform that only Indians use. I mean, in China, for instance, you have WeChat, and everyone uses WeChat, but we don't use it here. So India doesn't have its own sort of.
They do have, but they're not prevalent like Facebook and Instagram are. Okay. They do have.
We're still sticking with traditional channels. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Andy, I would like to add something. Yeah.
Go for it, Sara.
So basically, Instagram, I would say, is predominantly the biggest social media puller, especially for the millennials and Gen Alpha. But when it comes to baby boomers, I think Facebook is still very, very important, and WhatsApp, of course. But also now there's a lot of growing trend towards LinkedIn and Twitter. Like recently, if you'll see, a lot of people are very active on LinkedIn, promoting and connecting with people to curate their holidays or to reach the client. Similarly for Twitter. So, of course, Instagram, Facebook are really, really big, and WhatsApp. But of course, people are looking at more newer and more niche, like LinkedIn is a very niche network in terms of corporates where people are trying to reach people in the corporate segment. So, there are many, but, like, as I said, Twitter and LinkedIn are also evolving in this space now.
Fantastic.
Also, for anyone watching this webinar, please keep in mind that the big advantage you have with this market compared to China is that everybody speaks English. Anyone who's in your target segment who's going to come to Europe, who's going to come to the Nordics, they will all speak English. So you don't need to spend money on translations, localized content if you don't want to. Everyone speaks
check
English.
with Google all the time. What is it? Or check with Google all the time, like who's saying what. Yeah.
Okay, listen, we've come to the end of this webinar. So I'm not sure. We had some pre-prepared questions. I'm not sure I asked even one of them. But I think that I think I'd just like to thank everybody really for participating in this. I mean, it's been good fun. I've enjoyed it very much. It's been lovely to meet you all. And thank you for your contributions. And
I hope we could give some insight into our market to you.
Yeah,
what do you
no,
think?
I think it's been very interesting. Yeah. I think practically from people watching, and I'm sure there's some nuggets they've picked up there, which I'm sure will be useful if they're considering India as a market. Alexia, you've suddenly appeared.
I suddenly reappeared. Yes, I just wanted to leave the floor to all of you. It has been very interesting, and Andy, as always, you have done a great job both with finding the right people to talk to us, and also the questions were really, really relevant. I have to admit I had prepared myself 3 or 4 questions, and you have answered everything already. So I'm empty-handed. But I do have a very quick question, if Andy, you allow me.
Yes,
we still want. When we're thinking of product development, and this has been something that we talked a lot during the project time with the participating companies. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was Papori that mentioned the seasonality, and we mentioned holidays from mid-April to mid-July, and people traveling at that time. Of course, then we don't have the Northern Lights. We do have the autumn starting with the colors, of course, later on. But what kind of products would you recommend us to
Midnight Sun
for that time?
Yeah. Midnight Sun, you can look into it. You can do a lot of sports activities, a lot of cruises. The Midnight Sun is also a phenomenon, like the sun don't set till midnight, you see the sun, because I used to get very awed by it, and really people get awed by that. So that is something we can always, talk about more. So this is one thing you can look into it. And after that, the colors, the Ruska time, which is like not very hot, not very cold, and the days and nights are equal during that period. You don't have, you have normal day and light. So you can still get a chance to see the Northern Lights in September, things like that. So, that also we need to highlight. The cost-wise also, it's very effective because the prices of hotels and all goes down a little bit. So that period one should consider. Yeah.
What about cruises? Cruises is the other big one for the summer. Tejbir represents a couple of cruise lines in the region.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been promoting and distributing Havila voyages ever since they came on the waters. And as of now, I think we are so pleased and so happy with the kind of demand we have.
Response.
There's such a great interest in cruising, and there was actually no knowledge about that Norway offers this product. So it's a really, really go-getter product. And apart from that, even our second cruise line, Swan Hellenic, does phenomenally well in the summer season when the ships come up all the way to Svalbard and to Iceland and Faroe Islands and Norway. So both our products are doing tremendously well.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much for that.
But I do think, I think the summer destination we touched on the notion that it's very hot in India in the summer, and therefore any destination which is able to offer products which give access to the lakes and the forests and the fresh air and all, I think that's the sort of direction which would be attractive to the Indian markets in the summer season, for sure.
Yeah. It depends from which part of India. because some parts are not that hot.
Yeah, they're just
Papori, don't make it complex for Andy. He's already trying to solve it. You're trying to make it more complex.
Like I said, we are not.
Which it is actually. Honestly, we all know that India is such a complex market. So it's not easy to come say, okay, I do 5 shows in the country and here I will go back with great business. That doesn't happen,
Yeah.
It's a very diverse country. And I think to understand the cultural bridge is we need to cross if you can, and that will take a very long time to cross. And to all the listeners, and I'm assuming that they're all, tour operators and suppliers, and they want to enter the market. I would say that you have 2 ways of doing it. One is, that if you want to really invest for a very long time, Sara and Papori are the people to connect with. They will take you to cities and they will connect you to the agents. But if you find that that's a very long process of getting business, your return of investments will not be so soon quick, then maybe you should try and find a channel partner. Somebody like us who's already there. We understand both the words. We understand the Nordics. We understand the market. We understand which part of the country sells what and how to connect the dots. So that is the second channel that you can find, companies like us who will very easily, very quickly bridge the gap and make the business happen.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you for
Yeah,
that.
and I'm sorry, and I just forgot. I just want to mention, we did not speak much about the Baltic countries. We only go yeah.
You're not
So
talking
maybe
about Baltic because this is an Arctic Europe. Arctic Europe.
I saw somewhere Nordics and Baltics. So anyway, so next time we'll keep that for the next time.
Next time.
Yeah, we can keep that for the next
Baltics
time.
next time. We'll do that tomorrow.
Yeah. There's so many things we could do.
Alexia, I'll tell you, to go on forever. But you've been a great crowd. You've been good fun. You've been very, very knowledgeable. It's been extremely interesting, and I hope that everyone watching got at least something from this.
And we'll be very happy if anybody have any questions. They can write to us directly. We all four will be more than happy.
We'll circulate.
We're more than happy to reply.
So don't worry about that. But thanks again to everybody. It's been fantastic. Really enjoyed it, and see you again sometime, and see you next time. So thanks very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.